on, friends? I'm Rick, and this is your seat at the table, and we are looking at all things preppery. And this particular installment is the Magistracy of Canopus, perhaps the second most favorite of the quote houses that I really enjoy playing and interacting with. And this is a early on warning to let you know that this material is not suitable for young minds. It can be easily corrupted or misconstrued. As you well know, if you are aficionado of BattleTech, Canopus has some adult themes to it, and we're going to discuss some of that stuff. So if you're not, prepared to deal with that, best click off now. Just heads up and warning on it, because one of the reasons I like Canopus is because I'm a bit of a hedonist myself. Some people can call you a whole lot of other things, but let's just leave it at that because it's politically somewhat anyway. If oh Before we get off to that, I want to get off on a slight tangent because, hey, if you're any fan of BattleTech, especially if you're an old hat and you've been around long enough, you will know that the original maps came in cardstock. It was cardboard, really kind of robust stuff. And I have a considerable collection of these things. They've seen some weathering, as you can see down here, water damage and things like that. And there's a little bit of other damage and things. I try not to mess with it unless it becomes a problem. Ideally, if I was motivated, really should put some tape on there or try to glue that back on to try to make it last longer. The beautiful thing about these things is they came in a set of 4, if I remember. Like the original base boxes came with one set of 2, if I remember correctly, and then you could buy these in packs. They came in a 4-pack, and there were different versions. There were Mountain Hills, and so this was the stuff that we did before you guys got to manage to do 3-dimensional stuff. If you got some deep enough pockets and you had a big enough workspace, and you can afford to go to that, and I've seen some Wargamer Fritz, some of the he's got the ability to have 3D buildings and some terrain modifications in there. That's some awesome, great stuff. And there are some companies out there that have been around since the 80s that produce 3-dimensional, 3D tabletop play mats, and in some cases it's like a Lego set almost. You come in different sizes, different pieces, and you stack them up together and make yourself 3 dimensions and stuff. One of the things that we didn't have that luxury back then, and or if you were a very limited budget like myself on most occasions, you did the best you could with making cardstock buildings. Another thing that I loved to do at the time was when I was a kid, I was big into HO modeling. So I had a train layout in my bedroom for many, many years. And then as I transitioned into my late teens, I kind of got away from it. And but the buildings, I still kept some of the buildings, and I was able to acquire more at the local hobby store for railroading. And you could pick up some pretty cheap models back then. They're much more expensive and stuff today, but they still give a lot of dimension and depth. But one of the things we learned to do with these maps is they gave us these early ones. They gave you a blank on the back, and a blank was left up to you to fill in the spaces and do what you want. So if we look at the one that's sitting on the table right now, this is the back of one of those. Like I said, here's this one. You can see the different 3D dimensional stuff that's represented in 2D, and here's one I created for a river crossing at a bridge. And so we have roads converging up, and these maps, they were designed to hook up with other pre-existing systems. I've got a series of these with road and urban settings, so this was kind of lined up a bit for that aspect. There is a drop port over here in this corner here for landing drop ships, ideally. Although the truth is, if you're going to go and scale your battle mech being, and I don't want to dig into my box, but if this is a scale battle mech, a Union class dropship would be the size of a basketball sitting right here on the table. And we actually done that. We've done that for a couple times when we used a sizable Nerf ball about this big for a Union, and I think we had an Overlord. We were using a basketball for an Overlord, and I guarantee it really makes for fighting cramp. You think you want a challenging combat scenario, fight in and underneath a dropship, because it dominates that center map and really brings home the challenges thereof. But anyway, so that's kind of what we did was in my applications and things like that. Anyway, we're getting back to the Magistracy of Canopus. So if you follow the lame meme that is quite popular today, that the Turian Concordat is Space Texas or Space America, then you really have to kind of look at the Ministry of Canopus and say, is this Space Nevada, or i.e. Space Las Vegas, or Pattaya in Thailand? It's either Thailand or the Philippines, which other country that's in. And or other places where it's considered kosher to pursue many more of the adult entertainment, and there's reasons for it. So, and truth is, once again, just like the Turian Concordat is nothing like Space Texas, the Magistracy of Canopus, maybe more so in its early conception, but most likely not in its current conception, is nothing like Space Las Vegas, i.e. Reno, or where you want to say, I don't know, a dozen other places that come to mind, and trying to keep it kosher, right? We're trying to keep it a little bit PG. So we're looking back at a little bit of the history of the Canopus. So, Magistracy of Canopus, in the final years of the Age of War, this is prior to the formation of the Star League. Another interstellar state was born in Periphery. Highly efficient battle mech leader, Captain Cassandra Centrella, served in House Merrick's Defenders of Andrea. As a result of her superior misconception and tactical ineptitude, her two battle mech lances were left behind during withdrawal from troops from the compelling world of High Sphere. After narrowly escaping destruction, Centrella and her remnants of her command, disguised as traitors, captured a Capellan jump ship and returned to Merrick space after dodging the Capellan Navy along the way. Her unexpected return, her command had been officially listed as missing in action, immediately elevated to state hero. Promotion of honor notwithstanding, Centrella never forgot or forgave the incompetency of her superiors. Using her newfound fame, she quietly gathered other mech warriors dissatisfied with the state of the free world's military. After collecting over 100 members into her Black Brotherhood, she captured several Davion transports and departed Merrick space, stopping to raid a few strongholds for supplies along the way. No clear goal other than to rid themselves of all vestiges of Merrick allegiance, Centrella's wayward band made their way to the Periphery. Eventually, they settled the Canopus star system near the Turian Concordat. Although disdaining intersphere politics, Centrella recognized the need to maintain relations with the inner sphere. Beginning in 2530, the bold statuist Madrix of Canopus began negotiations with distant planetary and regional leaders in both the Free Worlds League and the Capellan Confederation, making private arrangements of aid and mutual security. Her aim was to splinter bordering governments into smaller states that could be absorbed into Canopian Union. Having accomplished this, she hoped to settle some old scores with House Merrick. Though not as successful as she hoped, by 2548, Centrella had extended the boundaries of her new magistracy to include 36 independent border systems. In 2551, the Age of War ended with Director General Ion Cameron of the Terran Hegemony mediated. I'm getting better at that, hegemony. The more I bumble through it. The resolution of the conflict between House Leal and House Merrick. He then set about securing the agreements from the other intersphere governments to form a new political union grander than anyone had ever dreamed of, the Star League. A new chapter in intersphere peripheral relations was beginning, an era that included some of the most spectacular, some of the most tragic events in the history of man. So we go on to the Star League era, and I'm not going to get into all that stuff. And then the Reunification War. In a sense, the Reunification War. This is when, after the Star Leagues formed, it's decided they still need this. You have several, all these houses and all these well-trained, heavily equipped, heavily motivated militaries, and you can't one day be at war constantly, the next day declare peace, and then have millions of trained soldiers who really don't have a whole lot of aptitude for anything else. This same situation plagues humanity all through its history, including the exodus from the SLDF exodus led by Kerensky ends up going out to form what eventually become the clans. End up running headlong into the same problem. Once they found a place to settle, they suddenly find that they got 20 warriors for every one farmer, and that's not going to work. And so they come up with some pretty draconian methods to hone down that, and not everybody was happy with it. And there was, well, all you gotta do is read up on Operation Klondike, or go find one of the great videos that are out there that cover it. I mean, it just gives you a really in-depth understanding of what happens. The same thing happens, the Star League forms this idea of peaceful coexistence to the benefit of all mankind, except in truth that they got to have a boogeyman. So in this case, when the periphery houses fail to immediately join the league, it's on. Now we got a boogeyman to go put these soldiers to, put them back to work, kind of scene. So, in sense, the Reunification War is 4 separate wars, each of which was characterized by the cultures and attitude of the antagonists. The Turian Concordat, for example, was far better prepared militarily than the other targets of the Star League incursion. This back, along with the intense patriotism, etc., etc. So, Rimwolders. Right here. Finally, the Canopian campaign differed from all the others because the Captain General Marion Merrick's strict enforcement of the Ares Conventions, which helped keep his campaign from even bloodier than it was. In the months following Lord Cameron's Pollock's proclamations, scores of Star League diplomats and politicians wrestled with the problem of support for the League's first military operation. For all their official posturing, not all the Star League councilors were optimistic about this imminent war. In the Free Worlds League, the threat of massive trade disruption cast a pall over all other social and economic concerns. And in the Capellan Confederation, young Ursula Leal was less than enthusiastic about committing her troops until she had solidified her position as chancellor. Following the actions of her predecessor, Ursula maintained a cautious detente with the Turian Concordat. Only recently did she permit Star League forces to be troops to be garrisoned at Capellan ports. All right, so it just goes on and on and on. So, Star League military organization, blah, blah, care about that. So we flip straight over to the campaign against the Magistracy. Since its founding a century before, the Magistracy of Canopus has grown from a collection of loosely knit worlds with little direction or commonality of purpose to a union of over 50 star systems, each dedicated to the singular vision of the Centrella dynasty. It goes going individual. The Magistracy of House Centella determined to secure its independence by becoming a force that no enemy would dare attempt to destroy. Floral decided to ensure the growth and stability of her realm by transferring into a system that offered one thing that was so lacking amongst the states of the inner sphere: freedom. Most of the Magistracy's people were dedicated to the goal of providing any type of pleasure, anytime, anywhere. Prior to the outbreak of the reunification, where hundreds of thousands of individuals have flocked to Magistracy worlds to indulge in activities that were either illegal or considered immoral with their own states. The general rule of thumb among the Caniopan worlds remains simple enough. We can make you happy for a price. How happy we can make you depends not only on how much you want to spend. Gambling, hunting, against humans as well as animals, sex, drugs, culinary delights, mental stimulants, neural enhancements, fashions, food, and fun were available in abundance throughout the Magistracy. Controlled mayhem and orgastic revelry were rule among Canopian cities where anything was permissible as long as one's sports did not result in the permanent injury of another individual, and that too was possible to circumvent this restriction at times if you got enough cash. Floral Centella and her successor quickly amassed billions, which were then invested in the Magistracy's future. Where worlds once supported a meager band of miners, pleasure palaces were constructed. To protect these investments, the Magistrate hired and constructed a small navy to transport them as needed, and more important, she also loaned some of the accumulated cash to the occasional Merrick and Capellan industrial, political, or politicians eager to finance their own fortunes. Finance his own fortunes. House Centella succeeded too well in its policy of non-aggressive defense, as it gave the Council Lords of the Star League greater motivation to invade Canopus than they had to invade the other periphery states. Enticed by the riches of the Canopian worlds, envious of the Magistracy's financial stability, and occasionally shocked by how Canopian entertainment could subvert the morality of their own citizens, Council Lords of the Star League began to see the Magistracy as a prime target. Backed by an incredibly wealthy war chest, the Magistracy fielded a defense force of 17 battle mech regiments, plus 12 additional regiments of Home Guard. To guard the space lanes and ensure communication between the Union's numerous planets were 2 fleets of small ships numbering 130 craft in all. So The Centellas can reply, "This Popinjay expects us to hand him the keys to our jeweled cities on a golden platter. That is an absurd notion. We are humans, yes, but we are also Canopians, and Canopians we shall remain. What does he offer us for the privilege of joining his Star League? What can he offer us that we cannot already buy?" Magistrate Cristela Centrella from the transcript of Ministerial Minutes, October 7, 2576. You're kind of getting the gist of the idea about how these guys were operating prior to the Reunification War. In preparation for its assault on the magistrate, Canopus Star League assembled a 7th Corps consisting of 30 odd regiments, backed by 12 regiments of Merrick regulars. Overall command of the campaign fell to Captain General Marion Merrick. In June of 2577, Merrick dispersed the Canopian naval elements found around Gujarat and secured the planet. Following was an assault on the provincial trading sister Umaka, whose numerous island chains required a series of search and destroy missions that lasted from August to into October. So, a night in Danbella. I'm not exactly a member of Korea's Order of Five Pillars, but bless my soul, I was not prepared for what I found at the Palace Royal of Danbella. Imagine a recreation complex the size of an entire city with as many functionaries as the local government, all devoted only to maintaining a citywide party that lasts 24 hours a day per standard day. You could easily get lost inside Danilbia. I did within the first 5 minutes, but what a hell of a fine time I had trying, not too hard, to get out. In the Danton Quarter, I found a reenactment of an ancient gladiatorial game. Sword and trident-armed warriors were pitted against all manner of beasts, over hundreds in all hacking and flaying about, while thousands of drunken citizens from a score of inner-sphere planets cheered them on. In a cabaret in the Gomorrah Prime, I saw things that you could only hear about in stories. You know, the kind you buy in black paper bags in the unusual part of town. By the way, if you ever go to the Gomorrah Cabaret, stay awake long enough to see Christina and her pet python. The things that snake does will redefine your concept of reality forever. Stay away from the Canopian glowweed, though. You'll enjoy it well enough, but in the morning you'll have had a hard time remembering your name. Over at Mercedes Falls, you can find mermaids, real, live, biologically engineered, half human, half fish people. And if you're wondering whether it's possible for mermaids to mate with normal folk, the answer is yes. Sometimes when the little woman isn't around, I'll tell you how it's done. If you think that's something, wait until you see the Centaur Chorus Line down at Minsky's on Ramblanter Boulevard. Not to mention the audience participation of happy hour after each performance. Don't be alarmed if you see some stuffy, green-clad Compellin with a girl over his shoulder, or a Lyran priestess walking about with nothing more than her ceremonial medals, or medallions. In Danbella, there are no Compellins, Lyrans, Davions, Merricks, or Caridans, just people discovering a million ways to be themselves, whatever happens to be at the moment. It's paradise, my friend, paradise. Justin Gordani from the Letter to Kojo Pumbleton, Canopia's Correspondence, Adult Attitude Press, Canopus 2547. Like I told you, I warned you up front, this ain't for kids. Kick rocks if you don't understand that. Let's say. So, Canopian Defense Force were kept so highly mobile, in fact, that the entire campaign became a protracted shell game. More than the Terran forces searched for the Canopian Navy, the more adept the Canopians became at both evasion and hit-and-run tactics. The special contingencies of interstellar warfare, particularly the impossibility of a thorough reconnaissance, prevented the League from making effective strategic decisions or even being able to make good guesses on how strong a force was needed to take an objective. On Restitution, for example, the League amassed a vast aerospace force to take a single planet. Planet-wide information broadcasting center that was supposed to be heavily defended, only to find the planetary garrison had been lifted off world a week earlier to reinforce the defenders at nearby Cranston. On this world, invasionary force ran into a buzzsaw when the NATO ground forces proved stronger than expected, and the Restitution aerospace forces arrived overhead. This became, of course, most of the engagements of the war, so that some worlds fell easily, others proved virtually impregnable. The turning point came during the invasion of the major world of Hardcore, where Starleague forces won an easy victory over the Skeleton Defense Force. At this juncture, the Canopian Navy, hitherto scattered throughout the interior of the Magistracy, concentrated for a stinging riposte, catching the Terran 14th Special Task Force napping off the asteroid shoals of Ben-Corel in November 2577. The Canopians destroyed 5 jump ships and escorts, eliminating 2 battalions of the Star League 25th Chasseurs. Losing so many men and ships without damaging a single Magistracy ship forced Marion Merrick to reconsider her plan of attack. The other side of the coin. You might be impressed by the superabundance of loose wine, loose women, loose morals, and all the rest, but I was not. For all the redeeming social value that Dan Bella may have, there is another side of the scary, gaudy world of sin, although few care to report on it. One thing I noticed above all this den of iniquity was the presence of beggars, men, women, and children, young and old, sick and well, pleading for coins. The beggars often robbed other beggars, the strong and the sound, a limb preying on the weak, the lame and the blind. Next to glass enclosed gold rim entrances to the Fondame Entertainment Concourse is a rarely used stairwell. If you have the nerve to investigate, the stairwell will lead you to a subterranean chamber hundreds of meters long. There are all manner of human flotsam and jetsam here. The rejects, the sick, the dying, the pitiful bundles of humanity that live out their days on rat pie and dog stew. Thousands of them, many of whom have not seen the light of day in years. They do not expect to have help from the local constabulary. The Danville militia is too busy with its own pursuits, which consist mostly of harassing travelers for bribes, and that is not all they will demand of a person before they let him pass freely. I can still feel the touch of hands running up and down my trouser legs. From a report on the depths of human depravity by Reverend Joseph McCormick, unpublished manuscript, Comstar Archives 2557. So, good and bad. A lot of bad went with the good. We're talking this particular scenario and world and what have you and so on and what have you. So, we got pleasant diversion. My platoon's mission was simple enough: occupy the metroplex of Haiti until relieved by reinforcements. At last, the enemy battle mechs had been clobbered the week before. It all seemed pretty easy. After all, what could we fear from a bunch of fun-loving, drunken civilians? There in the outskirts of the city, we found ourselves confronted by a troop of 20 local beauties from the Bergerac Ballet Company, all of whom were rather scantily clad for that time of year. Not knowing what to expect, I deployed my people in line and waited events. No sooner when we were positioned, but the assembled lovelies, accompanied by a raucous fanfare, stripped completely and began to gyrate suggestively, which left us, myself included, with our mouths watering. I ordered Private Carlyle to fire a warning shot over their heads, but by then my men were lost somewhere within the crowd of withering bodies. Then the troop of women departed with my men without a shot being fired. It wasn't my fault. I swear it wasn't. From court-martial proceedings of Lieutenant Carmen Riker, 17th Terran Brigade, Comstar Archives at 2551. It just gives you a different take on how Scintilla and the Canopus, Magistrate Canopus conducted their version of the Unification War and actually managed to avoid taking horrific damage and losses that some, like the Turian Concordat and some of the others took. So, just saying, right? So we go into the Succession Wars. And the only reason I tap on this is because I want to give you a wider idea of why, how the Star League mishandled the situation out in the periphery, and why it's still a problem even into the current era of the 3025 and beyond. Shoes. The independent world of Comstock, now part of the Marian hegemony, was one of those that the Star League sought to dominate by disintegrating the economy. Though the planet had arable land, the Star League built factories to offer good-paying jobs to work in them, while promising that nearby agrarian worlds would supply the food to Comstock in return for shoes. The leather for Comstock shoe factories would be supplied by off-world Star League ranches. Machinery and placement parts would also come from off-world. The people of Comstock were able to concentrate entirely on producing shoes for the people of other worlds. As long as the Star League functioned, so did this system. When the Amorous Civil War began, Comstock was cut off. Its people quickly fell to a subsistent level of existence because no one on Comstock had farmed the land for generations. None of them had the agricultural expertise needed to produce enough food to support the burgeoning population. When Marian exploration vessels landed on Comstock 20 years later, they found widespread famine, disease, and malnutrition. They also found the factories had continued to operate. The supply of leather from nearby Francis had continued, along with shipments of fresh meat. For the leaders of Comstock believed that the planet would be one day rejoined to another megalithic economic structure like the Star League, and that people would again buy goods from their factories. All over the inhabited areas of Comstock were thousands of warehouses filled with shoes of all sizes, styles, and descriptions. Many of these warehouses are still standing. Some have not yet been emptied of their contents. From the development of the Marian hegemony Hegemony by Professor Frederick T. Bone, University Election Press. So, see, one of the things that Starlink came in is that they tried to micromanage how the economy and social situations and interactions in the periphery was conducted. Come on here, come here, you. This here is yeah, right. This here is Banky, the shelter cat who wanted to get involved, right? So basically, what happens is they went in and they imposed their version of how things should operate and run in these various periphery states without any real long-term regard of the practicality of it. And part of this is just so they can line their own pockets. These contractors that the Star League hired and contracted out to are wealthy individuals, wealthy mega corporations, what have you, who just exploited the opportunities that at the periphery offered that they couldn't necessarily get away with in their own home states, their own home countries, houses, however you want to look at it. So when the Star League disintegrates, when the Amber Civil War, everything falls apart, a lot of these places are not suitable. They're not properly terraformed. Water's always been an issue in Star League or in BattleTech for many worlds, so water has to be brought in from other places. And then when we see the vast transport fleets of the Star League whittled away, diminished, and outright obliterated by the First and Second Succession War. Man, that you go back and see the video I have on jump ships and my belief in the quoted numbers as not being very practical or realistic for it to be something of that nature. Literally, there would have been tens of thousands of jump ships. You know, there would in order for the Magistracy of Canopus to have a viable tourist trade had to be millions upon millions of citizens of various houses of the inner sphere walking to the periphery, and a journey that could easily take a year. You're going to go out on a vacation for a year. It could take you 6 months of travel, unless they got some pretty elaborate relay system set up so you jump from jump to jump to jump, and that takes lots of jump ships. And so when you see that reduction in jump ships, obviously that's going to be a problem. Same thing with these specialized worlds, these worlds that are designed, that were set up by the Star League and hammered into a round peg into a square, or a square peg into a round hole to fit a specific design or need, and so that everybody was dependent on everybody else, and this allowed the Star League administrators and these various inner-sphere houses to dictate and control this. So when this system fails, lots and lots and lots of people suffer from that, and then that's just the way it all plays out. So let's go and actually get into the Magistracy itself. And once again, I know I apologize a bit how some of these videos tend to seem like they're dragging on. And now I got Fluffer. Here's a big doofus from, yes, doofus. Yes, everybody can hear you. You coming to say hi? You can't, no. All right, so that's Doofus. He's the big cat from next door. He can't get on the table, okay? Jesus, guys. Now everybody wants to be in here now. There's too many cats in this house. I'm just telling you. Too many cats. I do videos on the cats from my other damn channel. Excuse my French. Alright, let me find the page. Come on, here we go. Alright. The Magistracy of Canopus. Lying outward of the Free Worlds League, the Magistracy of Canopus is the third largest periphery state, founded in 2530 by Cassandra Centrilla, the ex-Mechwarrior. The Canopian Magistracy is an autocratic state where women traditionally manage the government and the military. In the early years of the Magistracy, population pressure and social prejudices within their sphere produced widespread immigration to many Canopian worlds. Taking advantage of the abundant mineral resources found here, Flora Centrilla, the third Magistrate of the Canopian Free States, transferred this backwater collection of misfits and malcontents into a prosperous financial and political entity. For nearly a century, the Canopian Magistracy was a semblance of decadent sensuality and the freedom of expression in every sense of the term. The richness of the Canopians collected eventually proved to be their undoing, as they become a prime target for the reunification war. Following the breakup of the Star League, Ministry began a massive rearmament program, hired many mercenaries, which were once more drew them to the unwanted attention of their ambitious neighbors. Beginning in the early 2800s, the Ministry lost many holdings in a series of border disputes with the Free Worlds League, the Taurian Concordat, and the Capellan Confederation. Seeing the pleasure world planets and remaining industrial centers being repeatedly sacked and looted, the hereditary leaders of the Canopan matriarchy, House Centrella, ordered the few remaining industrial plants to be moved deep within Canopian holdfast. The miniature ministry emerged alive and surprisingly healthy after 2.5 centuries of warfare, although a mere shadow of its once illustrious self. Destruction of galactic trade and tourism during the succession wars left a great majority of Canopian worlds lacking the barest technological necessities. Never self-sufficient even the best times, the ministry has seen numerous famines and agricultural failures, leading to significant depopulation and social unrest. With the difficulty of civilian space travel during the Succession War era, thus few customers to buy their pleasures, the magistrates turned once more to mundane industries. Once noted for their famous courtesans and dancers, the Canopians of today are highly regarded as healers, many who have traveled far afield in service of their state. Weary of their past adventures, poor in body and spirit, but nonetheless wiser for their suffering, the magistrate's intellectual is beginning to slow resurgence that may yet have a profound impact on the rest of the periphery sphere of influence. Okay, so once again, the huge, vast pleasure pits that prior to the Star League and to some limited degree during the Star League collapse with first and second secession war and continuing secession wars. There's just not enough volume of tourists to come in to support the economy, and things have to change, and it takes a long time for them to do this. But one of the things from early on was they had the best medical care, the best medical schools, and producer of all things from doctors and nurses to, every plethora of medically induced technology or people that you need to operate well. And in addition to that, they still found a way to promote their version of entertainment. One of these forms is these things called Canopan's circuses. And so a jump ship with a handful of drop ships full of quote, entertainment and entertainers would then travel on circuits throughout the various houses. And some houses were more conducive to allowing this than others, and some of that trade varies from house lord to house lord who's in charge. You see very few of these Canopas circus troops going through House Creta, for example, but they're very often found in House Leal and House Merrick, where Steiner and the Federated Davion, it varies up and down. And of course, the further away from the Canopus it is, the less likely one of these traveling pleasure circuses are going to show up. These things operate in kind of like I said, like a traveling circus. Bordello scenario. Meanwhile, they also provide a lot of opportunities for quote spying for the Capellans, the Canopians' perspective. This gives them an eye and an ear into what the bigger houses of the inner sphere are up to on a given time. It also brings much needed revenue back to the magistrate. So we have the best medical professionals anywhere in and out of the inner sphere coming out of Canopus, and by far none. And anybody who can afford to have one, hire one, hires these folks. So a lot of the really wealthy individuals of the inner sphere houses, if they got a family doctor, the odds are really good that that family doctor came through and is a member, a citizen of the Canopus. What? Yeah, we'll go back out there. Nobody said you had to. Yeah. Oh, I know. You're a big doofus. Dude was in all night last night in the garage, and he wanted to go outside. Now it's like 7 degrees outside, and he doesn't want to go outside. Yes, you're a pain in my butt. Gotta love the big doofus. So, right. Sphere influence. The Magistrate Canopus is a roughly circular shell of planetary system, some 40 parsecs in diameter. Though the government is officially neutral, the current Magistrate Canopian state, Cryla Centrella, is known to be in communication with very distant elements within the Free Worlds League and a compelling confederation. Her major objective is to restore technological exchange with various states of the inner sphere, but she also hopes to woo these elements to the Magistrate's banner. Although she has pledged to supply troops to support the Duchess of Andrian's bid for independence from the Free Worlds League, which probably there's some history down the road where that kind of works and doesn't work. Social political structure. Since its founding nearly 500 years ago, the Magistrate Canopus has been ruled by a matriarchy with supreme power vested in the person of Madrix. Though theoretically open to anyone obtaining 2/3 majority of the Canopian Central Committee, the Madrix has always been a member of the Centrella family, the original founders of the Canopian state. Despite the political domination, the magistrates retain a surprising number of individual freedoms. Its judicial and legislative bodies support human rights to a degree often lacking with the governments in the inner sphere. The center of the magistrate government is at Canopus 4, founded by Cassandra Centrella in 2530. Here, the magistrate maintains her royal court, the Canopian Central Committee, and the royal courts of appeal. The government structure, the Madrix, the Central Committee, Crimson Council, Canopian Judiciary. Formed as a result of the imperial edict by Cornel Centrella in 2570, the Crimson Council administrators matters pertinent to the Canopian nobility. The magistrate appoints a six-member panel which rules on the creation of new nobility, the assessment of noble privileges and responsibility, and general accountability of the state to the state and its citizens. On rare occasions, the Crimson Council, named for the traditionally dyed red ermine worn by the Capellan Canopian nobility, has served as a judicial review board in cases of misconduct involving Canopian nobility. Membership in the Crimson Council is for life, although the Madrix reserves the right to dismiss a council appointee. Canopian Judiciary, Canopian electors, the Magistrate nobility. Canopian nobility is unique because it's not hereditary. Extensions of noble titles and privileges successive generations appear on special service to the state. The passage of time, strictures regarding service have been loosened dramatically, but some token service is still required for those wishing to retain the honors that may be generations old. Canopian nobility is divided into three components. The first is the Franzes, are families who settled Canopia systems in the first decade of colonization. Dirachi represents the various merchant princes whose corporations have helped to develop trade in the periphery and in the sphere to have made substantial contributions to the office of the Madrix. The newest class of Canopian nobility are the Garen, are those rare individuals whose personal services to the state, both civil and military, have warranted special recognition.
Hey,
and, yes.
You have somebody in the driveway.
All right, I gotta make a pause. All right, let's see if this worked. I had to pause there, folks. I apologize for that. A coworker showed up needing to borrow a gas can because apparently the big honking power washer that's on a trailer that was in the shop garage all weekend, or most of last week, because the truck that pulls it was broke. Went from having a full gas tank to having no gas in it, and the fella's on a job. In case you don't know, we clean primary bread and butter for the company I work for is to clean exhaust hoods in restaurants and things like that. So I happen to be 3 blocks from the shop. So anyway, you come borrow a gas can. I don't understand the mindset of some of these guys. Why you siphon the gas out of one unit when you could just, you got company they give us gas cards, go to get a damn gas for your own unit. It's that or they siphon it out for personal use. I don't know. So hopefully this video is continued. I've had this happen before where I pause and then it end up cutting the whole video off. It appears to be up here. It says red and where the record part's on, and I assume everything is still functioning. And I hope so because I can't stop and pause and check it. I have to continue the video and hope it is, and if it's not, then I have to go back and try to pick up where I left off and make 2 parts of this and then meld them together, which always makes for a choppy video. And I guess at the end of the day, we're having a 2-part video here anyway, because obviously I had to take a break, and I'm explaining to you why I took a break, so on and so forth. So anyway, magistrate nobility, internal politics, interstellar relations, Since the onset of succession wars, the Magistracy of Canopus has maintained a position of armed neutrality. In the last 2 centuries, have been forced to beat back several incursions, punitive strikes by both Free World's League and the Terran Concordat, and a variety of pirate attacks. The Canopians have been able to maintain Canopians a tenacious hold on their heartland systems, which provides the basis for future expansion. So the Free World's League, Camellan Confederation, and this interaction here changes in the next 25 years. So as of 3025, the Magistracy government do not recognize the award of many of its industrial planetary systems to the Free World League after the Reunification War. Subscription acquisition of additional isolated systems by later Captain Generals has further raised the Canopians' ire. At present, the Magistracy refuses to receive diplomatic delegations from the Free World's League. Trade delegations are another matter. Till House Merrick is willing to discuss the return of captured Canopian systems. Various Canopian nobles, particularly those in the entertainment industries, are known to have informal contacts with Merrick officials through the mediation of the Camellan Confederation. Camellan Confederation. Historically, the Magistracy has had little to do with the Camellans. Generally, Canopians disdain any contact with a regimented, repressive society like the Camellans. In recent years, a series of small border actions against Camellan units have not done much to improve the situation. Though the Canopians have accepted a Camellan embassy on Canopus, the reaction to Camellan overtures for closer diplomatic ties is frosty at best. Given the Camellans' use of slavery within their sphere of influence, it's unlikely that relations between the two states will improve until the Confederation improves its human rights record. Yeah, they don't always play out that way. The Terran Concordat. Despite numerous clashes with the Magistracy and the Terran Concordat within the last few decades, the Magistracy maintains close diplomatic ties with its neighbors. Whatever their differences are, the Terrians are seen as fellow rim worlds, suggesting a social affinity that the peoples in the inner sphere cannot appreciate or understand. Thus do the Terrians enjoy a favored nation status with the Magistracy, and the two governments have jointly explored remote star systems at the edge of charted space. In recent years, the Terrians have suggested the creation of a pan-periphery state, but the Canopians have continued to meet these proposals with polite refusals. Well, that makes sense. It's the same reason why when the Federated Commonwealth begins its form and later has a lot of problems, a lot of members of both the Federated Sons and the Lyran Commonwealth resent the idea that, that hundreds and hundreds of years of history and tradition are set aside to become a bigger thing. So they're not joiners. And a lot of, like the periphery states, it's the same thing. The House of Centella has been ruling the Magistracy for 500 years. The Terran Concordat's been, the Camerons have been ruling them for 800 years. It's not a hard thing to see why the uniting them is not going to do well. Plus, if you go back and look at the human history of the failed Star League experiment, where it's supposed to be all of humanity under one banner, which in reality is some people benefit, some don't. There's a lot of bad blood and bad taste and memories of long. So other intersphere governments, Comstars, etc. Political goals. Beyond attempting to maintain its territorial integrity, the Magistracy's primary diplomatic focus is to establish new trade links with anyone willing to deal with so distant a trading partner. As part of this ongoing process, the Magistracy is attempting to obtain viable technologies to enlarge its minuscule merchant marine. In recent years, the Canopians have made several strides through exportation of medical and health services personnel to neighboring systems in return for raw materials and technicians. In addition to efforts for increased exploration and exploitation in new worlds, holds the promise of revitalization of the Canopian economy. Behind the scenes, the Magistracy Kaila Centrella is secretly planning for the day when war and disorder will destroy the Free World's League once and for all. In anticipation for this, she has identified various dissident elements within both the Free World's League and the Camellan Confederation. Since 3017, Magistracy envoys have been in secret communication with Dame Catherine Humphreys, the Free World League's Duchess of Andrian, in an effort to unite their two realms. Similarly, representatives from the Magistracy Inner Circle, etc., etc. Now let's take that for a brief moment. One of the reasons that Dame Humphreys wants to get away out from under the yoke of the Free Worlds League is to be an independent power unto herself. She's not going to she's not going to give up everything that and go through the sacrifice of what it would take to gain her minor house's freedom from the Free Worlds League, just to shackle it to another house under House Centrella. Hello. So it's typical of human nature, especially certain types of leader types who believe that they can somehow do this sort of thing and not have a problem. It just doesn't jive, right? So it goes on and on. Strength and weaknesses. In many respects, the Magistrae Canopus represents the best and worst of modern human development. Though autocratic in nature, its centralized government remains deeply conscious of the needs of its citizens. The continued factionalism of the Canopian aristocracy weakens the central government's efforts to bring about a rapid change. The general decline in literacy rates among the magistrate's lower classes makes revitalization of the Canopian state more difficult. Religion and philosophy. Of all the periphery states, the Magistrae Canopus is the most tolerant of various religions and philosophies. The original constitution, supported by later royal edicts, grants complete freedom of religion and philosophical expression, so long as the individual worship does not infringe on another's safety. All the major and traditional religions exist in the magistracy, as well as an abundance of newer philosophies. Indeed, the Canopians, are more than any other periphery people, have embraced the spirit of the new Hedon philosophy, which combines the ideas of free love and Epicureanism. Don't ask me how that's pronounced. Epicureanism. Philosophy harks back to early Canopian history, when the magistracy was the galaxy's pleasure retreat. Though the days when over 4/5 of the Canopian economic base was geared towards pleasure services are gone, a sizable segment of the population still embraces this eat, drink, and be merry lifestyle, with the occasional destabilizing efforts it has on society. No religion or philosophical doctrine may hold any official connection to the government affairs, etc., etc. Military forces. In a peaceful atmosphere that's dominated most of the magistrate's history, a standing military has been considered a necessary evil at best. It's not surprising then that magistrate has traditionally fielded one of the smallest armed forces in the periphery, while relying heavily on local constabularies and mercenary forces. In the years before the outbreak of the Reunification War, however, the Canopian government began a series of crass rearmament programs to redress this lack of well-trained and disciplined forces. It was too late, however, to do more than fight a delaying action against the best the industry could put in the field. During the Canopians' years as a territorial state, its military was reduced to a symbolic cadre of veteran soldiers confined to service as palace guards. Military buildup renewed after the magistrate's declaration of independence, but the loss of many key industrial worlds has stunted the military's potential for growth. In the present era, the Canopian armed forces remain a curious combination of local militia and highly trained federal troops. The individual Canopian soldier is highly motivated and capable of enduring considerable sacrifice. Far from being the velvet pillow pushovers, the Canopians are fully capable of giving as good as they might get from any invaders who fail to take them seriously. It goes on about uniforms and ranks, junior officers. There's another interesting thing about the Canopian military. You can buy yourself a position as an officer. The junior officer slides within the map are usually purchased positions, featuring unique among the periphery military systems. The practice is in keeping with magistrate's tradition, which holds those able to afford the cost of command positions, i.e. the nobility, are the best suited to lead. In all cases involving senior grade officers, however, such purposes require the confirmation of the magistrate. Although the merits of this policy may be questionable, the system has gone unchallenged for 4 centuries. Typical purchase price for the commissions of the MAF are given below in standard C-bills. Although there's less discrimination against male officers in the MAF than previously, it still does exist. Females are likely to pay a lower price for an officer slot than an equally qualified male. So an ensign rank for a line regiment is about 10,000 C-bills. You want into a guard regiment, about 18 to 25,000 C-bills. You want it to be a commander position, 16 to 20 for line, 30 to 35 for guard regiment. You want to be a major, 24 to 30, 40 to 45, etc., etc. Take it for what it is. Typical MAF units. MAP units feel closely modeled the deployment scheme found the armed forces industry with minor variations due to its size. MAP ground forces usually concentrate in one heavy battalion with most of its regiments battle mechs formed into four-man lances. Support battalions generally consist of whatever armor, mostly reconditioned tanks, and infantry forces that are available. Air lances are typically absent from MAP forces, the exception being the Magistracy Royal Guards, which contain one air lance per battalion. All other MAP air lances are under control of the Magistracy Navy, which then provides for the transportation, deployment, and repair. So unit profiles, we've got the Magistracy Royal Guards, 2 regiments, they're veteran, mech weight medium, fire weight light. They have armor, infantry, drop ships, and jump ships. Chester, Chabelle, Cassandra's Volunteers, Canopian Highlanders, Canopian Fusiliers, Harcourt's Destructors, Remley's Raiders, Hudson's Red Devils, and then we get deployment of their forces where they're as of 3025, their level, their experience level, their loyalty, and the homeworld they're based off of. Weapons industries. Magistracy Armed Forces suffers from the loss of many key industrial centers in the last 200 years, and in particular, the ability to produce battle mechs and mech replacement parts is virtually non-existent in Magistracy. At present, only 2 battle mech production facilities remain intact in Canopian Base, located on Canopus 4 and Duncanshire. These 2 centers have very low annual output, less than 60 machines per year, and produce mostly Locust, Wasps, and Stingers. The only medium-sized battle mech productions within the Magistracy are Shadowhawks, but usually no more than 10 per year. Productions for armor, aerospace fighters, and motorized vehicles run roughly 30 each per year. All right. Strengths and weaknesses. The Magistracy Armed Forces consist of well-meaning and dedicated individuals. The Armed Forces suffer from lack of just about every type of mechanical or electronic necessity, from the largest gridwork structure to the smallest microcircuitry board. With recent increased trade from other systems, the Canopians may be able to rectify this disparity in the future. Another problem confronting Canopian military is the low literacy level of its new recruits. Basic training and manual for new Canopian soldiers presently written at a 12-year-old level. This may have to be revised downward in the near future. MAP needs time to train and rebuild. Yes, Frankie, you trying to get back in again? Culture and the arts. If the Magistracy Canopus has one overriding concern, it's education. The average Canopian never progresses far beyond the elementary school education. This sorry state of affairs is mostly because of the lack of funds to rebuild the educational institution destroyed since the Star League's fall. This has led to a gradual decline in literacy rates over the past 200 years. Only 2 universities, basically technical, still exist in Canopian space, the University of Canopus and the University of Luxon. Because the average enrollments are less than 500 students and because of the lack of qualified teachers and educational professionals, the Canopians will continue to struggle with attempts to reverse this trend. Canopian health sciences represent the sole exception to the state of affairs. Development in Magistracy's early years, the medical disciplines have retained a high national priority, at times overshadowing the military and their share of economic resources. Today, the Canopian health industry remains the highest standards of care to be found in the entire periphery, and in many respects superior to that available to the inner sphere. In recent years, many Canopian physicians and surgeons have begun to practice outside Canopian space on long-term service contracts to other governments in hopes of stimulating the Magistracy's economy. Indeed, one such major opportunity for the Magistracy to upgrade its educational system is in this area of foreign cultural exchange, where they may develop programs that were trade medical care professionals for teachers, technicians, and other professionals. Although the Magistracy's once stable entertainment industry has nearly disappeared, it still remains a haven for artists and the actor. More illiterate Canopians have traditionally valued the contributions of writers, painters, and performing artists more than any other periphery of peoples. Artists can find employment readily available with government subsidies in abundance. The only demand placed on the individual's high-quality work. By extension, the Magistracy government maintains few restrictions on the dissemination of information and political thought, the only exception being censorship of materials imported from the inner sphere or the Taurian Concordat. Though generally pragmatic and level-headed, Canopian citizens are generally inclined to accept things as they are, enjoying what little comfort they can, then making sacrifices for an uncertain future. Social economics. Though once the richest periphery state, the present-day Magistracy of Canopus is economically stagnant. After many decades of deliberately channeling their resources in entertainment industries, the Canopians now suffer from having created such an diversified economy. Lacking even the shadow of corporate industrial base, the current economy is based on cottage industries and small artisan guilds. Official ban on the importation of intersphere technologies, except for military technology obtained from the Turian Concordat, has further hampered economic development. Recent efforts by Magis Cryla Centrella to trade services can open positions for intersphere technicians and business experts may begin to change the situation. So we'll look at some of the corporate profiles. The Canopius Delight Limited. Founded in the heyday of Magistracy Golden Age of Commerce, Canopian Delights Limited remains the largest commercial entertainment enterprise in the realm, providing live entertainments, both public and private, for business or personal consumption. CDL is one of the economy's few remaining major money makers. Magdalene Spirits, and then we got some of our personalities. So, Cryla Centrella, the Madrix, Royal Defender of the Magistracy, Canopus, birthplace selection, age 44. 2 meters tall with black complexion, gray eyes, and dark wavy hair. Cryla prefers Canopian silks to all over forms of clothing. She typically dresses in sleeveless garments or cleaning gowns set off her trim, muscular figure. Her high cheekbones give her an air of a predatory animal, which contributes to her striking personal magnetism. Personal motivations, brief personal history, manner, special skills. Emma Centrella, one of her daughters, brief atlas of the world. So we look at Canopus 4, capital world of the Magistracy. It's Class B Comstar facility, has roughly 537 million population. New Abilene, 114 million. Luxon, 94 million. 54 million. So you know, just take a comparison to Taurus, the capital of the Turian Concordat, the first periphery state that I did a deal on. Their population is almost 2.5 billion, and here the Canopus's population on their capital world is not quite 500 million. Just shows you just how much different size-wise they are in comparison. Smaller worlds. Here's one with 20,000, another one with 5,000. Wildwood, Vixen, one of the newest colony efforts, about 8,300. Go here to hunt the critters. All right, so there you have it. The Magistracy of Canopus. It's a very entertaining, troubled region of the periphery, and for campaigns and for mechwork, tabletop role playing and stuff. If you got a liberal-minded group of people who can understand the complexities of having adult themes in your campaigns, then this is an area to go. Not quite as fun as the Turian Concordat, in my opinion, but right up there. And it's till we get later, things change considerably over the next 25 years. And when we get to the 2057 rendition, the next book, we will really see some significant changes that have taken place in the Magistracy, much to their benefit, and improvement over time, and that'll be for a later video down the road. I also recently stumbled across a copy of the Periphery Field Guide produced by FanPro that was about $20, so I was very surprised to find it in a reasonable amount of money in a manner that I can afford to pay for. So I went ahead and ordered it. I hope to get it sometime in the next week or so, and I'm hoping that it shows it's not just a revisitation of these other books. That's the downside of ordering new stuff. When one company loses the franchise, when Fasten went defunct, lost the franchise, and Fran Pope FanPro picks up the franchise, the possibility that FanPro, some of their books, is just reconstituted versions of these books are very real. And the downside to that for me is that if they have no new content in them, it's just a better bound version of what I already own, then it's a waste of money. I mean, it really is for me personally, not for somebody who doesn't have it at all. So if you can get the FanPro version of the Periphery, that's great. But if it is in the tradition of the field guides that were put out toward the end of the FAST's era, then it will have updated material that's current to the timeline when it was put out, and potentially rework some of the stuff, and then of course the basis for the originals. So that's just my thought on that. This is Rick, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Until next time, we're looking at the Outworlds Alliance coming up, and I don't know if it'd be next weekend or the weekend after. The next couple of weeks are pretty busy for me work-wise, so we will see. I have a couple videos that I've got already banked for that sort of purpose, so we'll be producing a video or two next week, or publishing a video, at least one next weekend for sure. I'm hoping to do a couple more, so who knows. We will see how it progresses. Till next time, this is Rick, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.